Welcome back to another episode of CompleteRx's educational series 3 and 5. In today's episode, CompleteRx CFO Mark Stubbs sits back down with BKD Audit Partner Brad Monahan, who provides some additional information and resources to help hospital executives prepare for the changes in FASB standard Leases Topic 842.
We brought back Mr. Brad Monahan with BKD Audit Partner. Brad, CompleteRx doesn't have a lot of leases. And as we've worked with your team on this, we've quite quickly determined this is a complicated process. And I fully expect that a lot of our clients and all the leases that they're going to have, this is going to be a very time-consuming process for them. Now, for CompleteRx, we don't have to implement this until 2021, but I suspect there are a lot of hospitals out there that need to get on top of this rather quickly. Can you walk us through that process a little bit?
Sure, Mark, and thanks again for having me back. BKD has developed a three-step process that we're assisting clients with in implementing this standard. The first is to go through a process to make sure we've identified all the leases that an organization might have. And we use an artificial intelligence piece of software that we feed those leases into that's able to extract the relevant terms that are important in actually doing the calculations that an organization is going to have to do to put these leases in their financial statements. So the second piece, the second step of that process, once the leases have been identified, is to develop a roadmap and to walk through the myriad of elections that a company is able to make in its first time implementation of this particular standard. And while we don't have time today to discuss all those elections, I think it's important for organizations to understand that, as you indicated, this is a very complex standard to implement. And then the final piece, once you've made those elections, is to actually take the data, and we've developed a product that we refer to as Lease Vision that is able to generate the dollar amounts and the debits and credits that ultimately end up in the financial statements, along with the disclosures that go into your financial statements.
And this is a commercially available application?
Yes, it is.
Oh, excellent. Brad, what additional considerations and ramifications would people need to be aware of as it relates to this change in lease?
Well, Mark, let's talk a little bit about the presentation in the financial statements. And what we have on the screen is two acceptable methods of presenting leases and one method that is not acceptable. So the distinctions here in the first column on the left, you see that the right-of-use assets are broken out between operating leases and finance leases. And then you have the third category of our historical property, plant, and equipment. On the liability side, we have operating lease liabilities, we have finance lease liabilities, and then we have other liabilities. So there we have separately broken out the financing lease components from the operating lease components. In that middle column, the other option that you have is that you are able to collapse financing right-of-use assets into property, plant, and equipment, similar to how we collapse the capital leases today into that category. We do not, however, collapse operating leases into that property, plant, and equipment caption. On the liability side, you are able to collapse the financing lease obligations into other liabilities, but you do need to keep the operating lease liabilities in their own distinct caption. And then finally, what's not acceptable to do is to collapse both right-of-use assets under financing leases with operating leases. And likewise, on the liability side, you're not allowed to collapse financing lease obligations with operating lease obligations.
As I'd mentioned, Brad, we've started having conversations with BKD on this, for the CompleteRx leases. What would you say to those that haven't started yet?
Well, this is one standard that the information to implement this standard is already in your possession, but it is going to take some time to accumulate that information and go through the calculations. And so what I'm encouraging my clients to do is to begin that process now and to have it ready to be entered into your financial records. But if you have it done in the summer of 2020 and you don't need to put it into your records until January of 2021, then you've got a project that you can do in your slower time of the year and be ready then for the next year.
Is there such a thing as a slower time of the year?
Not anymore, there isn't.
Well, thank you, Brad. We really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say to anybody?
No, just thanks again for the opportunity to assist.
Thank you for tuning in to this month's episode of 3 and 5. If you enjoyed the content, please give us a like or share, and don't forget to subscribe to our social channels to keep up with this series and much more content from CompleteRx.